All right, let's dive right in. Look, we've all been there. A new schedule update lands in your inbox. You probably glance at the finish date, nod, and just move on with your day. But what if I told you that routine task is actually a critical investigation? Today, we're going to put on our detective hats and learn how to uncover the real story hiding inside any project schedule update. You see, this is the whole key right here. A schedule update isn't just a bunch of dates in a spreadsheet. It's a story. The contractor is telling you their version of what happened, why it happened, and what they think is going to happen next. And our job as the project detectives is to check that story, to separate the facts from, well, the fiction. And this is really the heart of the problem, isn't it? What you see on that clean, printed-out PDF report, the simple progress bars, the nice positive outlook, that's often just the cover story. The real evidence, the good stuff, is buried in the raw project file. And that file can hide a total mess, work being done in the wrong order, broken logic, or artificial dates that are just there to force a good-looking outcome. What you see is almost never what you actually get. So from now on, the next time that file arrives, I want you to ask yourself this question. Are you looking at an honest-to-goodness progress report? Or is it maybe a confession, just full of little clues that reveal what's really going on with the project? Let's figure out how to tell the difference. So, where does our investigation even begin? Well, first, we have to get our mindset right, and that means understanding one fundamental rule. You can never, ever take a schedule update at face value. Every single update is a story, and you have to assume it might be hiding the most important facts. Every detective needs a code, right? Well, here are our 4 cardinal rules. Number 1, always get your hands on the raw evidence. That means the native project file, not some polished PDF summary. 2, run your own analysis. Never, ever just trust the report they gave you. 3, focus on what's changed since the last update you officially signed off on. And 4, and this one is crucial, always respond. Because in this line of work, silence means you agree. Okay, so we've got our rules. Now we need a method. We can't just poke around randomly. We need a system, a framework that's going to guide our investigation. And the best part is, this method works no matter what scheduling software you're using. Now, if you wanted to be incredibly thorough, you could perform up to 119 different health checks on a schedule. Yeah, you heard me right, 119. Now that number sounds absolutely insane, doesn't it? Who on earth has time for that? It feels completely impossible.
But here's the good news. We can boil all of those 119 checks down into just 8 core areas of investigation. Think of this as our detective's toolkit. It covers everything from the basics, like system checks and activity logic, all the way to costs, resources, and the big picture review at the end. By focusing on these categories, we can do a really thorough job without getting totally lost in the weeds.
So our investigation kicks off with the first and honestly the most critical of those 8 areas, the very foundation of the schedule. Before we even think about looking at a single date, we have to interrogate the core logic to see if the story it's telling is even remotely possible. You see, every schedule is basically built on 3 pillars, like a 3-legged stool. Activities, that's the what, relationships, that's the how, and constraints, the when. This is the basis of the critical path method. If any one of those legs is weak or has been messed with, the whole structure is unreliable, and that finish date it spits out is basically meaningless. First up, we've got activities, the what. These are just the individual tasks, the building blocks of your entire project plan. So our first question is simple. Are these building blocks solid? So what kind of clues are we looking for? Well, check for start dates that somehow appeared before the last update period. That's a huge red flag. Question vague progress claims. For example, an activity that's 50% complete based on its duration might have 0 actual physical work done. These are the kinds of distortions that tell you the basic facts of the case are already being twisted. Next, we examine the relationships. This is the how. These are the lines connecting all the blocks, the logic that says, hey, you can't pour the concrete until you've dug the foundation. This logic is what defines the flow of the entire project. And here are the dead giveaways that something's wrong. Out-of-sequence progress is a huge one. It means the team is just ignoring the plan. But you've got to pay close attention to open ends. Those are activities with no task following them. This is a classic trick. When a task is a dead end, any delay it has just disappears. It doesn't push the finish date out, which effectively hides a major problem in plain sight. And the third leg of our stool is constraints, the when. Now, these are really powerful. They're like commands that can completely override the natural logic of the schedule. A must-finish-on date, for instance, forces a task to end on a certain day, no matter what the rest of the plan says should happen. Honestly, constraints can be like planting false evidence at a crime scene. A single hard constraint can make a schedule look good on paper, but it totally breaks the logical network. It's kind of like propping up one domino in the middle of a falling line. It just hides the real critical path and stops you from seeing the chain reaction of delays. It is a major, major red flag. Okay, so once we've established that the schedule's alibi is sound, or not, our investigation moves on to the motive. And for that, we follow the money and the people. We need to see if the story the schedule is telling actually matches up with the financial and resource reality. This is where earned value management comes in, and it tells a really simple but powerful story. Planned value is your budget for the work you plan to get done. Earned value is the budget for the work you actually got done. And actual cost is, well, what you spent so far. If your earned value is less than your planned value, you're behind schedule. And if your actual cost is more than your earned value, you're over budget. It's really that straightforward. So now we start asking the pointed questions. Are the cost and schedule performance numbers trending up or down over time? Is the original budget still intact? And this one's critical. Does the schedule reflect real-world people and equipment? A plan that assumes your lead engineer can work 20 hours a day, 7 days a week? Well, that's not a plan. That's a work of fiction. All right, we've interrogated the logic. We've followed the money. Now it's time for the final act of our investigation. We need to synthesize all the clues we've gathered to reveal the definitive, true story of the project's health. This is that moment in every detective story, right? It's where all the different pieces of evidence finally come together. We step back from the individual clues, and we look at the big picture they create. What is this schedule really trying to tell us? So our final steps are all about bringing it together. We check the activity logs for notes. Trust me, this is often where the real confessions are hidden. We identify tasks that are ready to go but haven't started, because that points to hidden problems. And then we create a simple one-page summary of the true critical path. This becomes our final report, the conclusion to our whole investigation. And let's just be really clear about the goal here. A methodical review like this isn't a witch hunt. This isn't about finding someone to blame for a delay. It's about responsible oversight. It's about maintaining control of your project, making sure your reporting is credible, and just practicing good, professional project governance. So the next time you get a schedule update, please don't just glance at that finish date. Put on your detective hat, interrogate the logic, follow the money, and synthesize the clues. Because the one crucial question you absolutely have to answer is this. Is the story you've just been handed a work of fact, or is it a work of fiction?